Hey there, ladies and gentlemen, this is Arkham Horror, and this is intended to be just a quick overview review of this game. I'm not going to get too in-depth because you can see other better videos on that. This is just to say, what is this like? What's the experience? Is this worth getting for yourself? So let's go ahead and dive on into it. So in Arkham Horror, this is very heavily a story type game. So there's 3 scenarios that come with the first kind of base game right here, and you can finish those fairly quickly. So on the one hand, it's awesome because these stories are so fun and they change a little bit, and so you don't know what combinations of cards you'll have in your deck, and this chaos deck, I don't know if that's actually what it's called, but the event deck of bad things that happen. You don't know all those combinations, but there's a lot that's going to be very similar with the act and agenda right here. And so the act and agenda, that is what you're trying to do versus what the game's trying to do, whether you kind of succeed or fail. One of the cool things about this game is you don't actually fail. You could fail, but you don't lose. And so you don't have to continue repeating things over and over and over, which is nice to not have to do. So that is something that I really enjoy about the game. Like Luigi's Mansion 3, if you've ever played that, you get the dog bone, you come back to life at the same spot. You don't have to replay that ghost or whatever. Anyhow, moving on. Really, really enjoyable in that aspect. And you can adjust different things to make them easier or harder depending on what you're doing. But you've each got your character. You've got a mini character card that you place into different places. Right now they're in the study, which is just another card. You've got all these nice tokens out here that you're using. And so you're playing this story. So right now, you're trapped. You're trying to get out of the study, and that is the very beginning, the first game, the introductory game, what you'd be trying to do. So 1 or 2 players, you could potentially play with 3 or 4 if you wanted to, but it's set up to be a 1 to 2 player game, and you're moving throughout this, and the story reveals itself. Now the negative side of this is you could get through it, and the replayability, you're going to know what happens in those games, but things could change. But the real cool thing about this is getting different expansions to this and being able to build on that. And there's a lot of replayability with this, for instance. There's just a lot of flexibility. So this is when you are taking a certain action. These are your modifiers. So -1. There's all sorts of different things you can put in here, and you have an entire extra bag right here of more of these. And so if you want to make your game easier, you can take out some more of the negatives. If you want to make it harder, you can put in some more of the negatives. So there's a lot of flexibility with that as opposed to dice, which is really, really nice. And so that is part of Arkham Horror that's really cool. Another thing that changes quite a bit is you have your deck right here, which this is just the standard deck, and you'll have things in here like physical training. So spend 1 resource and you get 1 head for this skill test, plus 1 head for this skill test. I don't actually remember what that one's called. So you have all sorts of different characters that have different abilities. Some of these overlap, some of them are different. Each character has their own different abilities. So this guy, Roland Banks, has a strength of 4, while as Wendy, she's got a strength of 1. And so she might not want to be attacking necessarily these different things that are going to come up. It might want to be Roland specifically, whereas she has a 4 for movement. He only has a 2. And so these are going to play out in different ways, and they each have actual special abilities and health and all sorts of different things like that that try and even the playing field. There are an additional 1, 2, 3 characters that again have different abilities, different special things that they do. And just so you know, here are all of the cards. This is a ton of cards. Here are all the cards that I am not playing with in this first game. So there's tons of different cards that you would put in these hands. You can make these yourself later on other games. But let's go ahead and look at what a turn would look like. Round sequence, Mythos phase. So you skip that during the first phase, but after that you place one doom on the agenda. You advance the agenda if the doom threshold is satisfied, and each investigator draws one card from the top of the encounter deck. So all bad stuff happens pretty much at the beginning of each round. And then the investigators take their turn. So each investigator takes a turn performing 3 actions. Those actions are draw a card or gain a resource, play an event or asset card from your hand, activate an ability on your card, move to a connecting location, investigate your location, fight or engage an enemy, or attempt to evade an enemy engaged with you. So there's a lot of different options of what you can do, and the flexibility in this game is just so enjoyable to be able to move around, do what you want, investigate, run from enemies, attack enemies, just decide what you want to do, how to accomplish your goals. Really, really enjoyable. And then it's the enemy phase. Enemies with a hunter keyword move toward the nearest investigator. Each engaged enemy attacks if able. And then the upkeep. You just reset things basically, and each of you gain a new card and resource every single time. So there's a lot that happens. And it's just a fun balance. I love co-op games. I enjoy running around with friends trying to beat the game. And I think this has a nice balance where the story is fun and it's still one that's not, in my experience, too easy to beat, but it's still one that is fun. And again, if you fail, you don't really lose. You just don't do as good a job, which kind of is fun because you could replay it and try to do better, which I really, really enjoy. So this is a game that I have enjoyed and definitely just wanted to mention a little bit about to you guys. So if you enjoy some of those mechanics that I've talked about with some of the flexibility, but some of, heavily on the story side of things, then I think you definitely would enjoy this game. So hopefully I've said a little bit that will give you at the very minimum more information about what this is, what it does, and why it may or may not be right for you. Thanks.